So in an attempt to show everyone how to get more out of the subscription and how to use the website best, at least for its major components, I've taken a browser which I personally seldom use, but that means I can now have a rather clean browser, and I've increased the size to 150% because I'm aware that on the other side of this Zoom link, the picture can be quite small. So for me, it's quite exaggerated. And I'm hoping that for the majority of you, that's large enough to see what I'm doing and where I'm going on the website. Excuse for that. What I've also done is I'm now assuming that we are using the website through a laptop or an iPad or PC desktop, and not through a mobile phone or even a rather small device. Our technology on the website adjusts to the size of the device. So I'm very well aware that if you use a smaller device, it looks different because we don't have as much space. If you have specific questions about what you don't see on your device and what you do see here, I'm always free, or we have a support team as well that can come up with some tips in that regard as well. But what we see on the website here, and just very quickly, the website is structured in 3 columns, basically 3 vertical columns. And the left-hand side is where we concentrate the news part of the service. In the middle, we do a lot of data, and then also in combination with some of the analysis we do. And analysis here is also, it refers to the tools we developed where people can analyze the market basically in the way they want and find suitable. And on the right-hand side, we have a little bit of a miscellaneous column. And on top, we have a search engine and myself on Twitter, which basically means you don't really have to be on Twitter to stay on up to date with what I do on Twitter. But on the top part, now you see my name, but I've skipped that step where that's where you log in. And to my surprise, what a lot of people don't realize is that it apart from giving your name once you're logged in on the website, is that it actually tells you the subscription that you have and when it expires. We do sometimes get a little bit of complaints from people that say, like, why wasn't I properly advised that my subscription is about to run out? But from our perspective, it's always there. Once you log on, it only takes you a little bit of a glance here, and you see, I've been very generous in giving myself a subscription here, but for most of you, it would say something along the lines of 2021 or 2022 if you renewed recently. Quite some handy tools here. Here's your account, which gives you more information, including your tax invoices. If you want to communicate with me or the team, this is the best place. It's the inbox or your messages. You can set your own alerts. You can set your portfolio, and you don't have to log out. You can make all your payments very well on that side here. What I subsequently want to draw your attention to is that we have this black strip here that runs across the website. And we have draw-down menus here. And a lot of people, to my knowledge, are not using the draw-down menus. Of course, we have developed the website in a way that you can simply scroll and find a lot. But I find that often the quickest way, we have now also, by the way, we have added a portion at the bottom as well, where you can basically do all the same thing as you can do on the top. But probably the easiest way to find things is still, I think, apart if you don't find them here, is through the drop-down menus. For example, we have latest news here, and we have excerpts from the broker call, just hiding behind it in a different tab. And you can scroll down, because I've enlarged it so much, I don't get them in the screen, but I could access the broker call of the day, or at least the latest edition, right, with this link here. But it don't have to go all that way. I can simply go to the top where it says Australian broker call, and this immediately leads me to the last report we have published. Usually, the reason why I refer immediately to the broker call is that is, to most people and probably to ourselves as well, this is the core of why we exist, of how we started, and this is the basis of pretty much everything on the website. Not so sure if I have to explain a lot here. Just very quickly, we have archives here. This is the old ones, and we have since a few years developed an addition to the protocol, and we are developing that even more to make it more accurate, more up to date, and more frequent. But if you go to the latest one, every morning we publish the majority of what the main stockbrokers in Australia communicate with basically their clientele, and we, out of a sort of a Robin Hood feel and out of keeping the market transparent, we think that needs to be communicated well beyond the databases that the brokers serve. And so we've done this now for pretty much 2 decades, and this has become quite a standard in Australia, I guess. It's very simple. At the top, we mention the companies that are mentioned in the report, and if you click on them, it will take you to those stocks in the report itself. And the numbers behind it means there are multiple reports in the broker call. Very quickly, a standard entry, it looks something like this. It has it tells you which company it is, it tells you which broker, it tells you the rating, it tells you the target price and the calculations around it, and it gives you the forecast, and it gives you a brief rundown about what this broker actually is thinking about a certain stock. And I'm assuming that most of you would be aware of this, including the fact that the specific forecasts for a stockbroker are being compared with market consensus. So you can essentially make a comparison where this broker sort of is positioned. Is he more or less positive than market consensus? I'm assuming that most of you are very well aware of this important product that we make, but where you maybe are not aware of is that you can access the archives at the top of the report here. And equally important, it gives you a guide here to the many ratings that brokers use and the why behind those ratings. So if I click on this one here, it takes me to a different page that says broker recommendations explained. So you may want to have a look at why some brokers say outperform and another one says buy, because there isn't, in some cases, there is a difference, not just in the terminology, but in the reasoning behind it. Now, we have a lot of explanation on the website, and I'm sure you would be very aware of some of them. If I go to financial news again, where it all starts with broker call, at the very bottom, we also have a glossary of financial terms. And I think that will come in handy for many amongst you as well. Now, the importance of the broker call cannot be underestimated, because while we report, and of course, we just in general, at the bottom, we add a lot of statistics of the day, the overnight prices, the target price changes. We tell you how many reports are in the report, and we also tell you at the top. Today we only have 2, but at the top we immediately tell you, okay, here we have the rating changes, because I do know for those investors who watch share prices very closely on a daily basis, that's often the first thing they look at. Important factor to keep in mind: we do not necessarily update the broker call once a day. As a matter of fact, that's almost an exception. So what happens is we publish a first version around 9:15 in the morning, let's call it, and then maybe half an hour later or an hour later we update again with more information that we couldn't get in the first edition, or maybe we were still working on it, or maybe we didn't have it at that particular point in time. And you can always see that the broker call will tell you once it's updated and when the last update was as well, in time-wise. There is a print function as well, which we have built in the website, so it fits a little bit in PDF or on your paper. And the importance of the broker call is that all the information that we put here, and in particular also the forecasts, like in this case, of course, there's no dividend, but there is an EPS forecast, and there is again, no dividend for the next year, but there is again an EPS forecast for the following year, plus the ones of the consensus, of course. So this number goes into the consensus, and this number goes into the consensus, which in this case, okay, there is no growth because the company is loss making. But elsewhere on the website, and if I take you, for example, to our second most popular feature on the website, then we go to the analysis and data column, and we have indices, and we have forecasts, and we have targets, depending on what you're looking for. Now, targets and forecasts both have stock analysis in it, because that's where you go in when you are looking for that specific application on the website. Now, everything we put in the broker call goes into stock analysis, with the main difference that stock analysis allows you to search per stock, and in broker call it only gives you what is updated on that particular day, and it may not, for example, include South 32 on a given day. And of course, it would be rather rare that there's none of your stocks mentioned in the broker call, but it is possible. And while being not dependent on what happens in broker call, you can always go to stock analysis and see what else we have in terms of forecasts without necessarily having any updates for that particular day. And in stock analysis, we give you the broad information. In this case, it went to South 32. It gives you the information about the sectors, in which indices the particular stock is represented. If we are currently publishing more and more updates, but it does give you a short description as well, in this case from South 32. And that can be a little bit cheeky in FNArena style. And we have, and this is what I was talking about earlier, we have our consensus market forecasts. And this is essentially the material that is derived from our daily broker call. So when people sometimes ask me, are you as up to date as, and then they mention something like a Bloomberg or Reuters or a FactSet, etc., then I can always say, well, yes, we are. We are as up to date as the reports are published on a given morning, because if it's published on a given morning and we have updated in a broker call, it is in the system. And it's a one-on-one translation from the work that journalists do. So of course, if we miss it, we miss it. But if we update it, it's immediately incorporated in the rest of the website. And the fact that we have now landed with South 32, I find quite interesting, because otherwise I would have to change to a different stock, but we can stay with South 32 now for the time being. And the reason why that is that because South 32 reports in US dollars, and it says so and underneath the table. And what a lot of people don't necessarily pick up on is that when a company reports in Australian dollars, the forecast is only set in Australian dollars, which makes a lot of sense. But when it goes into a different currency, in this case, the US dollar, so we have three tables here, and two of them are in Australian dollars. And this is what sometimes confuses people. For example, if they want to know what the dividend yield is for South 32, they can't find it here. And that, of course, makes sense, because in US dollars, we can't calculate a dividend yield because the share price here is in Australian dollars. So to make investors' life easier, and also to be more precise, and we actually think we are, I'm pretty certain we are the only ones doing this, to be trying to be so precise that we translate the forecasts we have here in US dollars, including dividends in US dollars. We translate them in Australian dollars in the subsequent two tables that are next to it. And the first one is translated in today's value of the Australian dollar versus the US dollar. So we simply update this every day in where the currency is. So 2 months ago, this would have been very different from today, because the currency has appreciated a lot. So you can see here on today's value, if that remains in place, we have a 1.8% and a 2.6% yield for this year and next year. We always look 2 years ahead. And of course, the running year at the moment is FY21. Now, this is one way of looking at dividends. And this is, again, this is an attempt from us to give you as many useful insights as possible. Because the next step is a bit different. What the next step does is calculate an average of the Aussie dollar versus the US dollar over the past 12 months. And that's essentially as important as where the currency is right now. In particular, if you're approaching your dividend payout, and then it's probably much better to know what you get over a year than what you get right now. And in that sense, you can see the difference here. The dividend yield on the average over the year for FY21, and they've already paid out one interim dividend, is 2% instead of 1.8, and 2.8 instead of what was here, 2.6. So you can see here, depending on your currency different approach, you have a little bit more yield if you take guidance from the average instead of from the current value. And I would argue, given that the currency has only appreciated quite recently, that the 12 months at this point in time is the more accurate prediction of the yield you will get once the financial year has run its course. But again, this average will change if this one stays at the current level. We have them in all foreign currencies. If they report in euros or they report in British pounds, in Kiwi dollars, I don't know which other variations we have. We used to have Singapore dollars and Japanese yen as well, but at the moment none of those examples comes to mind. But you can tell that we do our best to be as accurate as possible. But it's also I do understand from some of the questions that sometimes come my way that it does confuse people, and people then say, well, what is the yield? Is it 1.8 or is it 2%? And for example, a very common one is, well, are they paying 3.6% in the dollar, or are they paying 4.8? What is it? And it becomes even more here, because see here it becomes 5.2. And then of course the answer is, well, it depends. One is in US dollars, and the other ones are translated in Aussie dollars, but through a different approach. And so you get different outcomes. I mean, I'm assuming that most of you are aware and very familiar with this. This is basically a consensus price target we calculate from all the various targets we have here. And it's essentially the average we take. And we compare that to the share price. So this changes on a daily basis as well as the share price moves. We mention the franking. In this case, it's 0. But we never include the franking in our calculations here, because we think that's a bit cheating. That is basically your advantage you get from the tax office, and not necessarily from the share market. And it just makes the number look bigger. And fund managers and institutional investors usually don't pay attention to any of franking at all. It's just a free one that you get on top of your dividends. Another, what we thought is an interesting addition, and probably currently underappreciated by many in the database as well, is that we have an algorithm that we developed ourselves, and we will mention peer companies for a certain company, in this case, South32, which is a little bit a difficult company to compare to others. But nevertheless, we obviously, our algorithm has found a few here, and you can, if you want to, you can click on that, and it will take you to the stock analysis page of that particular company. In this case, that was Peel Mining, of which we don't know too much, to be honest. We can go around here all the time. There are other ways to compare companies, by the way, and I will quickly move to that one as well. Just have to be careful that I'm not stuck on stock analysis for the full time. I'm aware I'm assuming you're all aware that we line up all the information from the broker call here, and you can play around with it by seeing the commentary or not seeing the commentary. And we have a history here as well. Very quickly, which doesn't, it's probably not that important for South32, but it will be for a lot of other companies. We tell you what your yield today is if you purchased the shares 3 years ago and kept it in your possession. That is to show what accumulation means to investors, and a lot of investors don't appreciate this. That this can sometimes be, instead of 0.86, can sometimes be 8.6%. With a different stock, because obviously when dividends grow and your stock was bought at a cheaper price 3 years ago, you can have a lot of accumulation going on there. To illustrate that further, we have a dividend calculator also on the website. Not so sure whether many people use it. It goes back 3 years in time, takes the average, sees what the growth is. In this case, it's a resources stock. Dividend has actually trended negatively over the time, but you can calculate what it means for the 5 years ahead. Because it was negative, it obviously goes negative. It doesn't have to go negative. You can play around with this. You can put your own number here. So if I, for example, take out the negative sign, and I say, let's assume the next 5 years they are going to grow their dividends by just under 5% a year, then it tells me that my yield in 5 years' time will be 1.56, which is a little bit higher than here. But at the end of the day, this is not a great dividend payer. I do realize that I'm spending a lot of time on stock analysis, but I'm going to the chart now, and hopefully I can finish this off quite quickly. This gray zone at the back is what is the evolution of the consensus price target. So we're talking about this target here, which of course today is 2.936 over there, but that has obviously evolved over the last 12 months. So you can see the evolution, and you can see the evolution in comparison to where the share price is. And then we have the 60-day moving average and the 200 moving average for those people who pay attention to that. At the bottom, we have the start of a new financial year. We have year one forecast of earnings per share and year two. So in the next year, that changes. This becomes year one, and then we have a new year two. And you see here, in this particular case, we see a negative earnings growth for year two at the moment, unless commodity price forecasts change for South32. Now this, I've spent a lot of time now on stock analysis. There is news, there is a search engine, and there is sector news on the right-hand side. Let me try to go to something that is equally important and that may not necessarily have everyone's attention yet. All-weather stocks, my research, very quickly. I have been spending quite some time in researching stocks that are a little bit different, more quality than the majority of them. I've lined them up here. I added a category that could be potential and ones that have a little bit question marks around them. Doesn't mean that they are bad investments. You just have to be aware that there are question marks, and I actually own some of those stocks, by the way. Then subsequently, because I'm also devising a strategy where I think investors should pay attention to for the modern times, we get a lot of disruption going on, and we have new business models, and I think I try to line up the better ones under that category, and there's a lot of growth happening. And then ultimately, because we're all interested in dividends and in income, and I think that is an integral part of a portfolio. And I lined up, in particular last year, the ones I thought were very solid dividend payers and would not disappoint you. The problem is that, of course, in this respect, that the overall environment for 2021 has changed, and those may not be your best investments this year. But I'll come back to that in the second half, I'm hoping. We also do, of course, we have my views, and we have the corporate results monitor, which we are very proud of. I hope you sometimes visit our monitor. At the moment, we don't have too many stocks because not too many stocks have reported. Again, you have an archive here where you can do your own analysis, and we keep track of the majority of the statistics for you. And of course, we keep track of how the companies are performing. Again, you can click on the company codes and it will take you to stock analysis. Very quickly, because I do realize that this is already running towards halfway, I'm going to point out two more things to the website, and then I'm going to leave many of the other features we have to another time when I will follow up with a part 2. On the drop-down menu here, we have special reports. And we, on occasion, publish special reports. They're nicely packaged in PDF format. And this is where your bonuses are if you are a paid subscriber. Last year, we published a rather big volume about how life might look like in a post-COVID world, including some of the consequences for equities. But I think in particular interesting for most among you will be dividend investing the smart way. But if you visit this, have a look at many of the options that are available, including some of my books which I published in the past. They are there. You can download them anytime. You can read them anytime. You can download them again if you want. They are free and come simply because of the fact that you are a 6 months or 12 months subscriber. Last thing I want to show you is the FNArena windows. We were very proud, and we spent quite a lot of time on this, but we are also aware that this is probably not widely used by many of you. And we recently refined it a little bit. And Windows is essentially the share market divided by sectors and trying to compare peer with peer stocks. And the way it starts off with commodities, financial services, and industrials. And let's just, for the sake of argument, let's just take commodities. And what it allows you is to compare stocks with their peers, basically. And because we go on the commodities, it starts off with A2 milk, which is milk, which is also a commodity, but it allows you to explore further, which basically means you can refine it. And in this case, for example, I can go ever more into detail. For example, if I'm going for mining now and not for dairy, and after mining, for example, I can go for precious metals. So now I get all the gold producers and explorers on the website because there are not many silver producers on the website. It narrows the news as well here, and it narrows, of course, the companies that are available. So this, I'm sure, will help, and you can set more settings here as well. I'm not so sure what happens after precious metals, but let's have a look. Well, then of course there's only one. I guess we have a few more precious metals, but when you really want to make sure that you have gold and silver, then you choose gold and silver, and it basically allows you, and you can go back here to financial services or to industrials if you want. This is unfortunately the last part I want to show you for now about the website. Do feel free to ask more questions. If I hope so far that I've already given you a lot of tips about where to find things and how to use things. We do have a guide to the website here as well. It's limited in its use, and I hope that a broadcast like this, when it becomes available, will help many more people of you to make better use of the website.